Good morning and welcome to Rising. We have a superb show for you today. That's the adjective of the day, I suppose. What else do we have going on, Briahna?
Well, our panel is going to get into the Ukraine bill and why Democrats and Republicans are slinging mud at each other over the $40 billion aid package. Plus, we'll discuss a new U.S. government watchdog report that has more info on the Taliban takeover in Afghanistan.
But first, President Biden has invoked the Defense Production Act to supposedly speed up the production and distribution of baby formula. Here is Biden yesterday announcing that policy.
The Defense Production Act gives the government the ability to require suppliers to direct needed resources to infant formula manufacturers before any other customer who may have ordered that good. And I'm also announcing Operation Fly Formula. That's to be able to speed up the import of infant formula and start getting more formula in stores as soon as possible. I've directed the Department of Defense and the Department of Health and Human Services to send aircraft, planes overseas to pick up infant formula that meets U.S. health and safety standards so we can get it on the store shelves faster.
The authorization comes just a week after former White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki blasted Republicans for suggesting the Defense Production Act as a means to address the shortage.
The production of baby formula is so specialized and so specific that you can't just use the Defense Production Act to say to a company that produces something else, produce baby formula. It just doesn't work that way exactly.
I guess it does.
The new White House orders hit the House floor yesterday and approved a bill that would expand access to formula for low-income Americans. Only 12 Republicans voted in favor of the legislation. Democrats then added $28 million in funding for the FDA in hopes to prevent future disruptions and enhance safety inspections, according to the Washington Post. Now, Robby, in fairness, was the question that Psaki was responding to, was it about getting other companies? It seems like she was saying you can't get other companies to make baby formula, right. And this is about enabling existing manufacturers to create baby formula. Right. And also, of course, shipping it from overseas, which is one of your recommendations and something you were hitting hard last week, no?
Yes, which is why I'm a little frustrated when they say now we're in the midst of a crisis. Oh yeah, we should import, the government should provide this assistance, we'll import more baby formula. Why weren't we importing more baby formula to begin with? Because then the price of baby formula would be lower, even during the non-shortage period, right? We're concerned about the cost of goods and services, of products. If you allow more importing of, at least in theory, like that's like a basic economics lesson, it's supposed to work that way. If there's more of this supply, then the price of it would go down.
I think that's a fair point because people have been pointing out that they've known that this shortage was coming for a while. As, you know, people knew back in February that this was coming down the pike. So there is a question about why some of these, intermediate steps weren't taken at that time. I do think, if you parse her language, she's saying, European formulas that meet our standards are being shipped in, and I think they're obviously have to deal with some of the cooling and shipping issues that we talked about last week. So it looks like they, it's not just a free-for-all, and there's some safety.
We talked to a few days ago, it was just Kim and I, maybe it was Monday, because you weren't here. We talked to Peter Pitts, who's a former FDA top person, and I asked him about the European baby formula, and he said, it's not a safety issue at all. He said it's a labeling issue.
Well, no,
we don't like the labels.
I saw that clip, and that was my understanding as well, but it's a safety issue and a labeling issue. The labeling issue is that it's not in English, and therefore people might not be able to dose it right, give their babies.
It seems like it could be something we could work on.
No, it's something that they can work on. I think is what they have been working on. Whether or not it should have taken as long as it did, I completely agree. I'm not sure what was going on there. But the issue is, and it's happening right now with formula, the formula shortage here in the States with American formula, that people are diluting formula because they're trying to stretch it, which is understandable why a parent would think that they should do that, especially when they don't see how they're going to get more. But there are real serious health consequences for babies when you do that, and people have been really warning folks not to take those kind of measures in their hands. So if already we're in a crisis because people are diluting formula because of scarcity, not being able to measure up the right amounts could also present similar kinds of challenges. And I understand that.
Maybe the government could put out a little handy reference guide that this many kilowatts of baby formula
Kilowatts? Okay, Dr. Robby.
I knew that was wrong as soon as I said it. Meanwhile, formula is still being subjected to international tariffs, so it's not clear how Biden's Operation Fly Formula, what a great name. I'm sure the ultra MAGA people were responsible for that one.
Putin's baby formula, I don't know.
Putin's puppet formula. Rand Paul has introduced a bill yesterday to permanently remove tariffs on baby formula, cut regulations set by the FDA. That sounds good to me.
Yeah, I'm glad you approve. The efforts come as 2 babies in Memphis were hospitalized after needing IV fluids and nutritional support. Desperate parents have been advised not to make their own formula at home, leaving parents with few options other than to sit and wait. Facebook even censored a homemade baby formula recipe on its platform that made the round.
Yeah, this was pretty egregious. My colleague at Reason, Elizabeth Nolan Brown, pointed this out to me yesterday. Yeah, this is just a mom who had a homemade formula, a recipe for baby formula, and the Facebook fact checkers, which I've complained about on this show before, are the very worst content moderators of all. They blurred the image that this is like dangerous information because it's not been vetted by the FDA. Like what? So Facebook is just. It's just an enforcer for like what the government thinks you should be allowed to. People have made, and then if you look closely at what this formula was recommending, it was using I think corn syrup, which is a part of has been a part of baby formula recipe.
Well, do we know?
Okay. This specifically has not been vetted by the FDA, but it is composed of elements that have been approved by the FDA.
All right. Robby, like it's composed of elements, you know, the difference between like hydrogen peroxide and hydrogen gas, like the poisons are comprised of the same chemicals that are right. in things that are perfectly healthy for us. So I'm not
but
trying
Facebook
to say
wasn't saying this was poison. It was just saying the FDA has not vetted this to establish that it is not poison.
I hear that, and I don't disagree. I want to point out that I would be curious to know if this formula actually is or is not harmful, because I think it is true. I mean, we can say that we don't like this censorship without also dismissing the fact that there are real safety risks here from people sharing these formulas. So if you read that post, it's like, you know, my grandmother, this is my family formula, my grandmommy gave this to me or whatever, and it seems very folksy and homey, and it makes me want to trust it. But that could be an issue if it's not actually up to safety. And I wonder what you think of a measure, instead of blurring it out like this and not allowing people to post it, if they were to start putting those little like warning banners under stuff the way they do for, you know, Trump, you know, election stealing misinformation and things like that, where they allow it to be posted, but they just say, warning, this might not be accurate information, warning, you should check with your doctor.
I guess they could add a little label that says, this recipe has not been approved by the FDA. Fine, they can let us know. I don't care that it's not been approved by the FDA. The FDA is not the ultimate arbiter of all truth on earth. But if that, like, who is this serving? Well,
it is serving. Robby, see, this is where we disagree. I'm totally with you on the structural dangers of having this much intervention from these private companies on what speech goes out into the world. At the same time, I can recognize that it's intended oftentimes to address real problems that exist in the world, like the fact that all these babies are being hospitalized across the country because people are diluting their formula, making up formulas that are not medically indicated, and are unintentionally hurting their babies. And I still want to be working toward a solution to that fundamental problem, even if I disagree with the solution that's currently being trotted out by Facebook and the government. Which might be, you know, and this is a real problem that we're dealing with the mass media and the way that you can distribute facts far and wide in the way that wasn't possible before. Before, if I tell my neighbor, hey, this is a formula I use, the worst thing I can do is maybe like cause a couple hospitalizations on my cul-de-sac. Nowadays, if I can post something, dress it up so that it's a folksy sounding, legitimate sounding recipe that's been used for years. It may or may not be. But I found myself really taken by that post, and then I thought to myself, I had no way of knowing this is representing anything that's authentic. And it can spread to millions of people and potentially cause damage. And I don't know what to do about that. I don't know how to address that. I'm much more for a minimalist version of pushback with a labeling, if anything, as opposed to blurring it out. But I think we have to recognize the underlying concern.
My colleaague, Elizabeth Nolan Brown, who is, she's a new mother herself, and she's more of an expert in nutrition than I am.
More than you? Kilowatts?
Kilowatts. I knew it was wrong when I was saying it. She wrote about this and said, what was being recommended in this homemade baby formula was not different in any substantial way from what people have been making for decades or was standard in the 1960s. And I think that the fact that the Facebook fact checkers cannot distinguish between like a post that says, right, here's this older recipe for baby formula that might be of some use to you given what's going on now, and like an instruction to drink bleach is concerning, right? That is something you would want maybe them to, if, widespread, some viral post to encouraging people to commit actual serious harm or ingest.
But how do we know that this
they can't
recipe...
tell the difference between that.
Well, this is the issue. How do you know that that recipe is not as harmful to a baby as or similarly harmful as drink bleach if they are not basically vetting it with the same expertise as the FDA? Do we want the Facebook to be doing the FDA's job of saying this is or is not a
I'm not even sure I want the FDA
recipe
doing the FDA's job.
Well,
I certainly don't
okay.
want Facebook doing it. The Facebook fact checkers have not shown any ability to be reasonable or apply common sense in case. And actually, I believe, I'd have to check this. I missed this this morning. I believe our article about this got censored by Facebook, by the fact checkers on Instagram, which is the same company, obviously. So us writing about this ended up with the same warning label situation.
Blurred,
Frustrating.
blurred, or
the blurred, but it's blurred with this like false information kind of banner, which again was something I've been hit with in the past when they claimed I was making. They said I had made the claim that masks don't work in this article I wrote, which and they quoted that. And my article never said that masks don't work. My article was just summarizing better reporting from The Atlantic that found mask mandates in schools that had mask requirements had not seemed to fare statistically better than schools that didn't have them, which is a totally different claim. Yeah. So then I come back to the fact like, you are making the false claim right now because you're saying I said something I never said in this post. And they did fix it in that case.
Yeah,
but,
you got Yankowished.
Yeah, I got Yankowished, yeah. All right, well, we've got our radars coming up next. Speaking of, I've got a long one on Yankowic, and Briahna has one on the state of the Democratic Party, so stay tuned for that.